Welcome to another exciting episode of the Super Fantastic Exchange. My name is Gary. Guys, I can't tell you how excited I am today to bring to you somebody that's really important to me, that has inspired me in my career journey, none other than the incomparable Lexy Smith. Guys, y'all give it up for Lexy. Woo! Can you hear him clapping for you, Lexy? Can you hear him?
Do you hear that?
I hear him. It's amazing. You got quite the fan club.
It's the big audience.
It is a huge audience, man. This is impressive. The audiences just keep growing. I'm loving it. Lexy, thank you so much for joining me here on this Super Fantastic Exchange. Man, you've been such an inspiration to so many people. I have had a chance to work with you in my career, and it was such an honor to work with you and learn from you and be inspired by you. And so I'm like, man, I got to have Lexy on this show. And so here we are. And so I want to give you a chance to share a little bit more about you, who you are and what you do. So take it away.
Well, thanks, Gary. And the feeling is mutual. I was honored when you asked me. I was like, me? Really? So thank you so much for having me. And so a little bit about me. I have been in multifamily for we all joke, longer than we'd like to admit, right? So we'll just call it a decade plus, close to two.
That's fair.
And it's been such a fun ride. I fell into multifamily, I think like a lot of us have. And a good friend of mine introduced me to the industry. We worked together in college, and she was just like, hey, like, we've waited tables, and it's, this job leasing is kind of like waiting tables, but people are nicer to you. And I'm like, sold, let's try it. And then, fast forward many years and grew up in the industry, leasing, community manager, and now I'm in learning and development training. So I'm a director of learning and development, and just love it. It's funny. I always thought growing up, I was like, well, maybe I want to be a marine biologist. I think every kid wants to do that. And I was like, well, maybe I'll be a teacher. And I wound up getting a formal education in criminal justice. And then here I am. So it seems to have been on my radar all along, and it's fun to see how things work out.
That's amazing. What a fun story. And I think your story is, resonates with a lot of people because, one, a lot of us fall into this industry, the multifamily industry, and you kind of grow up into it. And I know that, and I personally appreciated you kind of went through the ranks, leasing, community manager, to get to where you are now. So you really have a great perspective of where the associates, team members are that you're supporting as learning and development director. So you really have that perspective and appreciation for where they're at.
Yes, and things have changed over the years too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that stays the same and is the core of the business. We provide homes for people, and that doesn't change, right? A home is a home.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of changes throughout the years that have been fun to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Lexy, you've inspired so many people, me included. And so what I love to do is I love to peek back behind the curtains as to what inspires those leaders, thinkers, and motivators that inspire other people. So here we go. We're about to peek behind the curtains a little bit about Lexy Smith. So I asked you, what are 2 to 3 things that inspire you? And you sent me an amazing list, and I'm really excited to talk about some of these things. The first thing you shared was possibility. And so you've got some points under there that are really like one of them I'm going to kind of hone in on, but I want you to share, what does possibility mean to you and how does that inspire you?
Yeah, it's when you asked me that question, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. Like, how do you articulate what inspires you? And there's people and there's concepts out there that I think a lot of people read, and there's quotes, and there's all these things that inspire you. There's just, I live in Colorado, so going on hikes and the scenery itself is inspiring. And I think all of that, to summarize that feeling that all of those things create for me, is possibility. So it's just that one word. And I think it's so many things. So one of the first things that comes to mind is like the space, the time to really explore and be curious. That's one of my favorite sayings as of recently, like, let's be curious about this. Let's ask questions. You know me, Gary, I love to ask questions. And it comes from a place of that learner, right? Of really wanting to understand. And a coach of mine in my past always would ask, like, okay, when you look back on things that you've done, in our world, we implement a lot of things. We have a lot of change in our world. And when you look back and you reflect, sometimes it can be overwhelming of, oh, this didn't go the way I, wanted, or I envisioned this panning out differently. And the question that she had always asked me was, well, if you just were to make it 10% better, what would that look like? And so that's something that has stuck with me and inspired me. And that relates back to possibility of, okay, well, 10% better, that's obtainable. That's easy to think about. It's a small chunk. It's not like redoing a whole thing. And I think asking why comes into that. Like, why did something not go well? Why did something go really well? What would you continue to do? And exploring just all the possibilities out there, the possibility of thinking outside the box. So I hope I try to inspire that in others as well, because that inspires me to just, anything's possible. I grew up in that kind of world where there was an internet at one point, and then there was, and that feeling of wonder, and like you ask a question, you're like, who was it in that movie? There was that actor, and then you kind of sit with it for a while, and your brain goes. And today we can Google everything, and sometimes I just like to sit with things and be like, oh, I wonder what this would look like, right? Yeah,
that's fantastic.
So I think that's the best way to explain that.
I love that. And one of the things that really resonated with me when you shared these points is, there's two things: curious and 10% better. And I really love how you really are curious about how can we make things 10% better? And I believe that really is, that is something, like you said, it's easy to grasp. It's easy to hang on to 10%. That's, that doesn't seem unreasonable. So perspective wise, it feels like, yeah, we could almost make anything 10% better. But how can, I love how that's a great perspective to have. Let's not shoot for the moon and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I've set an impossible goal for myself. But when you say 10% better, that feels, it's a perspective of, that's something I can do. But the way you go about it is you're asking why. You're curious. How can we do this? Why would we want to do this? And that's such a neat perspective to kind of have that possibility, that realm of possibility, so that you can move forward in kind of if you will, reasonable manner, but it's making things better.
Yeah, and sometimes it helps you see things that you have an idea in mind, right? We're an industry full of amazing, talented people, and very competitive, and always looking to how can we be better. I mean, we've seen that in the last few years. Our global environment has inspired us on how we can be better. And I think that's just a really, really cool part of it. It helps you see the options out there that maybe you wouldn't have thought of yourself. Doesn't mean you have to take the option, right? It doesn't mean that you have to select that. It's still an option. It might just not be the best one, or the one that fits the scenario. So I think it helps you see things that you're not thinking of yourself as well, or that are right in front of you. And it kind of takes the training wheels off and lets you explore, really.
That's so good. Take the training wheels off, take the safety out, and go explore. Be curious.
Yeah.
And just, maybe it's, just 10% more down the road.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I love that perspective. And that's a little bit out of your comfortable zone, but it's a comfortable extension.
Yes.
And so
Oh,
people,
man.
that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Lexy.
Yep. If you're a little bit outside your comfort zone, it's a little uncomfortable, you're learning.
Yes.
So.
Oh my gosh. Mind blown, Lexy. I'm loving this. Hey, so the next thing you shared with me is your team. Your team inspires you. So share a little bit how your team inspires you.
Oh my gosh. They are just a group of amazing people, and recently have had some new team members join through some changes, some organizational changes, and they are just a group of resilient humans. They're smart, they are confident, and they just lift each other up every day. And to watch them work together and cheerlead for each other, and they are just like a group, like a very diverse group of people, all from different backgrounds and different experiences, some in multifamily, some not, some different experiences in learning and development, and really being comfortable with each other and trusting each other. Like, that's the best part, is seeing how they trust each other to be honest and to be curious with each other, really, I think, is talking about curiosity and challenging each other every day and listening and showing up and having each other's back. And that, to me, like, that's them, right? And it's just so fun to watch, and that inspires me every day.
That is so that's fantastic. I one of the things I picked up on how you started describing your team was, it wasn't the skill, it wasn't the hard skill that they do, rather it was who they are as a person. And you are, you hear that quote, train for the attitude, or hire for the attitude, train for the skill. And one of the things, Lexy, that I'm picking up on is you've surrounded yourself with people that have the right attitude, that lift each other, like you said, cheer each other on. And I love how that is how you described your team. You see the value, the intrinsic value in those team members, not necessarily what they can do, but that's the value and the inspiration that you find in your team. Now, you can do all these things, but it all comes back to who they are as a person.
And they can do anything. They really can when they work together. And sometimes, like, they'll say it, sometimes they're like, are you sure? And whether it's me or someone else in the team that's like, let's give it a try. Like, what's the worst that happens? It doesn't work, right? And then we try something else.
Let's be curious.
And that's the fun part about our world in L&D, and that we do have a little bit of space that we can play around with things and try different concepts, and it's really fun. And there's a lot of work that goes into what people see, the finished thing, but it's really fun to work in the background and have that exploration and really collaborate with all different departments that we work with, and our associates that are out doing, like, leasing and maintaining our communities, and hearing what they have to say is really important too. And working with them is a lot of fun. So it's fun to see my team deliver on that.
Love that. And I can feel your inspiration when you're just talking
I
about
was like,
them.
oh gosh, I hope I don't cry when I talk about it.
I should have warned you. Yeah, you did good. I appreciate it. I almost got a little teary, but you did great. Lexy, I love that you're curious. You've got a great team that you've surrounded yourself. It's it's very deliberate and intentional the way you surrounded yourself with a great team. The third thing that you shared that inspires you is amazing leaders. So share with us what it means, how these amazing leaders have inspired you.
Oh gosh, I have been surrounded by a lot of great leaders. You being one of them, Gary. We did it. We had 2 years where we worked together, and I learned so much from you. And that's what I really try to do, is learn from, all the people that I've been around. And a a leader that I worked with recently had told me once that leadership is not it. Wait a minute, I'm going to butcher it. If you know me, I'm terrible with sayings. Leadership is taken, not given. And I always was curious about that, right? I was like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I believe that, but what does that mean, right? Like when I first heard it, when that was first shared with me, I was like, it sounds a little aggressive though. Like, what does that mean, right? And so I think, at first I was not taken aback in the context of which we were having the conversation. We don't have enough time to get into that, but really, like, how do I take that and apply it to who I am as a person, right? You get these little nuggets along the way of, I've learned some things that from leaders that I might not want to do, right? It's just not me. It's not that it's bad or it's not successful, and it really resonates with some people, but it has to be authentic to you and who you are as a person, right? And I think that's something that I always am trying to challenge myself with. I'm always learning. I hope. I hope I'm not the same person I am today that I was when you first met me, right? I hope I'm 10% better. And I think that's the thing. And so through those that I've encountered over the years, and I love to read, I love to listen to podcasts. So a lot of different thought leaders, Brene Brown, Simon Sinek, some names, John Maxwell, it all came a little more clear to me when I attended a human leadership workshop hosted by Kristen Hadid. She's an entrepreneur and author and now a thought leader. And her inspiration comes from a lot of those people that I had mentioned. And she introduced, I don't want to say it was a new concept, but it was just more of like things meet you where you're at when you need them. And it was human leadership. And that's just something I was like, that's what this means. Like, leadership is taken, not given. And being your authentic self and leading with compassion and love. That's something that Kristen says, that love is not talked a lot about in the corporate world. And it's not necessarily like this huge, like gushy, like, oh, Gary, I love you, which I do love you, Gary, but it's different, and it can mean a lot of things. So it's really hard to articulate. I think it's more of this feeling that you get. And I was, as I was thinking about our call today and this conversation, I was like, okay, so how do you explain this? And so when you say leadership is taken, not given, you could actually really say that the responsibility of leadership, it's like the responsibility of leadership. And I think when Simon Sinek says it of, your leadership is not about being in charge, it's about leading those in your charge. That's kind of what tied all of it together for me. So it's kind of taking these little nuggets and how does it resonate with you, and making it so that it inspires you, right? Like that's what inspires me, is how can I take all of these concepts and how does it relate to me, and what's authentic to me and how I want to show up every day. And we're humans. We make mistakes. We have lives. We have families. We have pets. We have friends and community. And that's really what it is. It's how you show up every day. And some days are better than others. Like, I'm not perfect, right? There's some days where I look back and I'm like, oh, well, gosh,
close. You're 10% away from perfect.
So, it's taking it and learning from it and growing. And that's really, I think, all of the leaders that I've been around, back to amazing leaders. It's people in this industry. It's people outside the industry. It's authors and thought leaders, and taking all those concepts are all said in different ways and making it your own. So
that's good. I love that. I love that, how you're able to recognize things that leaders do, like you said, in the whole world, that those nuggets that resonate with you, you pull in those, and if they resonate with you, you make them your own. And I believe that's such a powerful tool. That's a gifting where you can pull those nuggets in, and that's awareness that you're able to grab those and embrace those nuggets that truly resonate with you. And I love, Lexy, you brought up the word love. And it's interesting because we don't use that. And one of the things that brought to my mind is there's a Greek word. There's several Greek words for love. One of them is agape, and what that essentially means is reverence for another person. And so, we have in English, we've got one word, but Greek, there's so many different words. But agape love is simply reverence for another person, a brother, a friend, and that you will do whatever for that person. And so I think that is true. And I think you've kind of touched on a nerve there, Lexy, that there could be a shift in the business world, that there's an agape love that leaders need to have for their teams, because that's the reverence we have for others. And I think that could shift the leadership mindset in some way. So I don't know, you've opened something, make us curious about it. 10% better, and start just taking things. Lexy, you have been brilliant. I love everything you've shared with us about what inspires you. And I could talk to you for hours, and I have in the past, but we've come to the end of our time. I want to give you a chance to share a closing thought before we wrap up here.
Oh gosh, that's a big ask.
It is.
I guess I would just say that, find what works for you, and be confident in that, because if it's authentic to you, then it will, however you lead, whatever you're communicating, whatever you're working on, the spirit of the intention you have will always follow. So if you're leading with, I want to help our teams be better and I want to make their lives easier, if that's your intention all along, that will show up no matter what happens, no matter if it's a flop, right? I think people will still see that you tried and that you cared, and it's okay if you make mistakes, right? That's how we learn, really. And I think that's hard. It's hard for me to realize sometimes that, gosh, I don't want to fail. I don't want to disappoint anyone. And I don't think that anyone thinks, I hope I don't, that people wake up being like, I'm going to be really terrible at the thing I'm going to do today, right? Like, I hope no one wakes up, gets out of bed in the morning and starts their day with that, right? It's like, no, I want to help people. We're all in this industry because we want to help, right? We want to help people find their homes. We want people to have a great experience. When you're not at the communities, you want to help the teams have a great experience. So
that's so good. That's so smart. Lexy,
my final thought.
That is so good. That's powerful, guys. We got to write this down. But Lexy, you've been absolutely wonderful. I love what you've shared. Go in there with the intention of being curious, making things 10% better, surrounding yourself with an incredible team that inspires you, and take the nuggets from the leaders. Have awareness to take nuggets from other leaders in your world so that you can be 10% better. Guys, y'all give it up for Lexy. She's been absolutely amazing. Make sure you follow Lexy on LinkedIn, wherever you can find her. She's going to be at NAA in June, so please make sure you go connect with her. Absolutely ask for her autograph, because she's going to be speaking. It'll be absolutely incredible. So Lexy, thank you again for joining me here on the Super Fantastic Exchange. Thank you so much, guys. We will see you on the next episode of the Super Fantastic Exchange. We'll see you guys.
Bye.